All right, and mahalo, President Hensel. At this time, as they make their way up to the stage, we have members of our UH leadership team. If UH leadership can kindly just raise your hand as we acknowledge you as you make your way to the stage and take your seats. We do welcome Vice President for Research and Innovation, Vasilis Sermos, who provides leadership and coordination for research and innovation. We also have VP for Budget and Finance and Chief Financial Officer, Calbert Young. Among his kuleana, overseeing the development of financial plans and strategies and managing the university's budget. We also welcome VP for Administration, Jan Govea, who oversees administrative functions across all 10 campuses, ranging from procurement, real property management, capital improvement projects, HR. VP for Legal Affairs, Carrie Okinaga, also on stage as well. Thanks, Carrie. She leads the Office of General Counsel, providing legal services to the UH Board of Regents, the UH President, Administration, and its operating units. Also on stage, sitting next to our President, Assistant Provost for Global Engagement here at UH Mānoa, that's Brent White, who leads the campus's international presence and partnerships and programs ranging from faculty and scholar immigration services, international student services, and national student exchange. And of course, our po'o here at the helm, President Hensel. How about a round of applause? This is our exceptional leadership team at the table, helping to guide the University of Hawaii. Okay, so we've arrived at the Q&A portion of our forum today. We've had a number of pre-submitted questions that have come in via the online form. We thank you if you were one of those that submitted those. We had more than 100 come in, so for the sake of time, questions on the same topic may be consolidated. For those of you here in person, thanks so much for being here. If you do have a question, we just ask you to raise your hand. Yes, just like that. We'll have a microphone walked over to you. We kindly ask you as well to limit it to a single question so we can hear from as many voices as possible. Our online audience, welcome in. Thank you so much for being here. I'm told there's more than 1,000 of you that are logged online. Please enter your question into the Q&A feature. Again, we will do our very best to get to as many as time allows. Anyone who has logged in after the point of being allowed into the Zoom room, if you're on there, you know what I'm talking about. If you'd like to submit questions, please use the Google form that was emailed to you this morning. Okay, just some rules for today. We ask for everyone's kokua in approaching this conversation with respect, with warm aloha. And with that, we ho'omakakako, we begin with our question that was actually submitted, thank you, Brent, submitted ahead of today's forum. Why is the university no longer sponsoring green cards for non-instructional faculty? When will this resume? And President Hensel, about 22 questions were submitted ahead of time related to green cards.
Anne, you wanna?
Maybe to try to keep the response pretty simple, I would like to confirm that the university is still sponsoring green cards for all types of faculty position, both instructional and non-instructional faculty. We have not typically sponsored green cards for our APT positions, and we are in the process of reviewing that policy, but would like to use this opportunity to clarify.
Hey. Thank you so much, VP Govea. The next question coming in from our Zoom audience. It reads, the chancellor at my college continues to quote President Hensel's statement from February 18th regarding the BOR and herself being the only ones who can speak on the EOs, but has used it as a reason not to share details about our campus's response to EOs. Can you please clarify that leadership can and should be speaking internally with constituencies about these issues?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, the policy is really relates to public statements made externally. Certainly, I would expect and hope that leadership will continue to engage with constituencies, to have conversations, to do their leadership internally. It really is about more statements to the press and official public statements so that we can speak with one voice in that arena. But it's absolutely not a prohibition of having every kind of internal conversation with your leadership.
Thank you, President Hensel. We now turn to our in-person audience, and we see a hand right here. Thank you so much. We'll bring a mic right over, and feel free to share your nino, share your question with us. Mahalo.
Hey, so I actually have two questions, only because one is really timely. We're in our bargaining unit approval session, but I just want to bring up the immigration. I was informed by someone at the International Student Services that ICE is meeting with ICC, with ISS. And so when I saw on the website that ICE is not on campus, I read it last week that the exact language was ICE, happy to report ICE is not on campus. But then from what I hear from other staff at International Student Services, they are meeting with ICE about students. And so I'm a little confused on what it is you mean by there are no ICE activities on campus. Also, I just want to ask a question about to President Hensel. We're in the process of approving our bargaining unit 8 contract. I want to know, like, how many of our staff members in bargaining unit 8 are under the ALICE threshold, because a lot of us don't even make enough to, we don't even make a livable wage. And so according to the bargaining unit contract right now, we're only getting a 4% raise next year, which is ridiculous, considering that you're the one of the votes, you know, you voted for the contract and you're making way more than anybody in this room. I'm just a little like confused on like how little we're being paid here on campus. And that's my second question. Thank you.
I'll start with the ICE question. I am not aware of any, in fact, and have had conversations with government officials that have confirmed of any coordinated activity by ICE on campus. So I'm not, as the president, I would be the first person to be notified if that was true. So I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify. So we're not aware of any ICE enforcement on campus. There is every year, twice a year, a meeting with the CVIS representative. That's the student registration system, which the president spoke of. And it's just a check-in, a routine check-in. So we have that meeting, but we have that meeting every single year. And there was absolutely nothing in that meeting related to any type of immigration enforcement. That could be the confusion, but no ICE presence.
Mahalo, Assistant Provost. We'll take another question in the room, and we have one here, third row to our left.
Mahalo and aloha. My name is Sergey, and I have a question. Can you please tell me a little about the potential cuts to student financial aid and how it may impact students who rely on those resources for their education and well-being? Thank you.
Impact to financial aid? Is that what your question was?
Those resources for their education and well-being.
So up till this moment, we don't have specific information about cuts to financial aid, so that's a positive. I do know that there was a deficit in terms of Pell Grants coming into the new fiscal budget. I have a feeling that the Congresswoman would probably know more about this than I do. But certainly we're keeping our eye on that. There was an announcement that was issued literally 5 minutes before I walked over here that said that the federal government was going to begin seeking loans for defaulted loans, repayments on defaulted loans. So folks who have graduated and defaulted, they're now resuming those activities, but I have not heard anything about cuts specifically as of yet to financial aid. It may be coming. Pell Grants, there already is a deficit. We had more than was funded by Congress, and so the question is what's going to happen with it. But I have not heard any follow-up on that as of yet. I will absolutely, in real time, be reporting that information as we have it.
Thank you, President Hensel. And we're going to bounce around in person, Zoom, pre-submitted, just so we can try and be fair and have as many voices as possible. This next question, President, comes in ahead of time, pre-submitted. How are international students informed if their visas are revoked? And what is the support that UH provides?
So we check SEVIS records every day, every morning, to see if there are any terminations. And in the very few cases where it has happened, we have reached out to the student by email and by phone, and where possible, sit down and have an in-person conversation with that student, as the President mentioned previously, to connect them to available resources, including pro bono counsel where necessary.
This next one coming in from our Zoom audience. According to the EO and guidance found readily online, the DEI certification refers to an organization certifying that it, quote, does not operate any programs promoting DEI that would violate any applicable federal anti-discrimination laws. Now, this does not sound like it means all DEI programs. What's the difference between legal and illegal DEI, and what are we legally allowed to do?
That's an excellent question, and one that is not well understood at this moment. You know, it starts with the understanding that there are multiple sources of law that are happening simultaneously, right? There's the statutes that we follow that arguably say what they say. There's the EO interpretation of those statutes, which has changed the interpretation to mean that taking race into account in any sense is unlawful, versus the previous understanding that sometimes race is relevant in order to achieve equality. And so the answer will ultimately lie in Congress or the Supreme Court. But what those EOs do is signal where the federal government is headed and how the federal government intends to interpret the statutory anti-discrimination laws. The important thing to understand is we never have violated anti-discrimination laws, we don't think. You know, we've always tried to comply to the very best of our ability. It's part of who we are. It's important. But as I talked about in the last session, you know, part of what we've been messaging is that words have changed meanings. Not so much that the statute has evolved, but that the words people are using to describe the statute has evolved. So things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, just the words suddenly have negative connotations to them, which we don't necessarily share. So the bottom line is this is evolving in real time. The stakes are incredibly high, and it ultimately will sit at the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has indicated where it's probably headed on this issue, and it's unlikely to be terribly favorable to old interpretations of anti-discrimination. But, you know, until it's clear, we will continue to do what we can to follow the statutes as we understand them.
We thank our Zoom audience for that great question as well. We're moving on to our in-person audience here in the ballroom, and we see a hand right there. We have our UH communications team on their way to bring over a mic.
Hi, thank you very much. I appreciate that you mentioned the Harvard case and that you said that you would stand up for it. Thank you very much. I've also been very critical of the risk assessment policy around DEI, but that's not my question today. Has there been any discussions about mutual academic defense pacts? I know that Rutgers and a few other universities proposed doing such things, especially considering that UH is we're isolated here on the island, right? There's not other universities here. Have you heard about these, and is it something that the university may be open to joining?
I think it's a question of semantics a little bit. As I said, there's at least 5 organizations that we're coordinating with right now to do coordinated action, defense, litigation, and policy statements. So in terms of, I'm not sure what a compact means, but I will tell you today I was on a call with 100 presidents from around the country. And the conversation that we had is similar to the one that I just articulated. The stakes are changing. The level of attack has escalated. It is in no one's interest to be by themselves And no one, frankly, everybody is concerned, right? There's a lot of fear out there for everybody at every level, but joining together in banded communications in terms of concerted action and litigation means that everyone has to be a little brave, but no one has to be a hero. And that literally was the conversation that I heard today. And from my perspective, we will always do the right thing, but our voice is amplified and magnified times 1,000 if we do it in a concerted way. And so every opportunity we have to join with other people in fighting these fights, we will do so. So yes, we absolutely are doing that. I don't know if it's, I would call it that. It might be something slightly different, but we absolutely are engaged in concerted action.
The time now 3:45. If you're just joining us here in the UH Mānoa Campus Center Ballroom or online, welcome in. You're tuning in to the UH Leadership Forum on Federal Policy Changes. Just a reminder, our online audience, please enter those questions using the Q&A feature. If you're here in person, we kindly ask you to raise your hand. We turn now to another question, President Hensel, that was submitted ahead of time. What is being done for undocumented students' protection, DACA students?
Clearly, no one on the stage is in charge of that. We are in conversations, as we always are in conversations, about what are the challenges for those students and what do we need to do in connection with the Attorney General's office. In terms of if the question relates to enforcement on campus, as I said, we've put out numerous specific information about names, numbers, policies, etc., so that all of us can become informed about what to do in the event there is an incursion on campus. But we are also working through the President's Alliance, which that is a major foundational component of what they do, is advocacy at the federal level for DACA. So I'll get a better answer for this group. I'm actually concerned that we don't have a better answer, as you may be as well, so stay tuned for that. We'll see what we have.
A lot to keep on top of as they...
I have no doubt we have an answer to that. I just don't think we have the expertise on the stage at the moment.
You know, this one coming in off of Zoom, can the president clarify how cash flows occur? For example, how long does it take for federal funders to reimburse activities that we are contractually obligated to conduct as part of our grant deliverables? Regarding Harvard, will the president sign on to support Harvard as other university presidents have done to at least show symbolically that we support Harvard? Lastly, will the president consider joining Rutgers, which is a public university, mutual defense compact for academic freedom, institutional integrity, and the research enterprise?
Well, I'll answer the last part and then I'll hand it over down here. Yes. As I said, there will be a statement coming out tomorrow that I don't think it is specific as to Harvard, but it is all the principles that are in play relating to higher education.
I guess I'll talk to the reimbursement. So the way the federal grants work, as the questioner had posed, the university typically, in most instances, expends money and then gets reimbursed for that expense from the federal government for those grants. We have already noticed that it's called the days of float. So between the time that we actually ask for reimbursement and the time they will actually get reimbursement, those days are getting longer. And there's also an elevated risk that we may not get it at all because all of the issues that have come up, these grants can get canceled, they can get suspended, they can get forestalled. And there's also, because of the condition of agencies in the federal government with agencies losing staff or laying off people, there's also less structure to actually process these payments to begin with. So what's happening is the university is expending a lot of money at a same rate that we have previously, but we're not getting reimbursed for it. And the elevated risk of not getting reimbursed means it may eventually be just money out the door as an expense, and that's the risk. And it is happening. It's only been about 3 months now, but we've already noticed, an extension of these days on float. And as the situation progresses over the next several months to years, we could maybe pretend that the days afloat will get exceptionally longer.
And that response from VP Calvert Young, mahalo to VP Young. This one also pre-submitted. Please clarify better the international students' situation. I'm on my last year of graduation and wondering if it would be okay to travel to my country in the summer.
So the question of whether a student should travel home this summer really is a question that will depend upon the personal circumstances of the student and the country that the student would be returning to. So, is the country possibly subject to a travel ban or restriction? Does the student have a valid visa, or they need to get another visa? What are the wait times in that country to get a visa? What are the grant rates in that particular country? And then upon re-entering the country, are there perhaps concerns with the social media activity of that student, or speech activities that could bring them to the attention of agents at the border, where there's a great deal of discretion to deny entry. So it really is a personalized, country-specific evaluation. Because of the rapidly changing situation, we'd urge some caution. And if you're looking to travel home this summer to meet with your international student advisor, or if your international faculty or scholar or staff, meet with that office so we can make a determination with you whether or not it would be wise or not, and what the risk of traveling home might be.
Thank you. And we've come up to our 10-minute mark. Just to let our UH leadership team know, we'll take another question in person. Any questions from the audience? We see one right there. Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to ask, because of all the federal policy changes and the funding cuts and so on and so forth that have been discussed, what potential tuition changes or personal cost of students are in the forecast?
Great. It's a great question. We have not discussed increasing tuition. That will be a last resort as we identify what's happening. Our commitment is students first in this entire escapade that we're going to go through, to ensure that students can continue to have access to their education and to continue their education once they're in it. So, I can't tell you the answer across lengthy periods of time. What I can tell you is we are absolutely committed to keeping it as low as possible. So that has not been discussed as of yet.
Next question coming in from our online audience. Could there be a process in putting terminated UH positions that are externally funded into similar UH permanent positions?
So theoretically, that is a possibility. But I would say right now, every campus is looking at that strategically, financially, if that can be afforded or sustained. In general, that practice, we are on a position very cautious that the state and the university cannot afford to take over funding that was previously provided by the U.S. federal government, supplanted, and rely on university funds or state funds to cover all of them. That being said, we already know that there might be some very surgically precise areas where it's part of the university's mission or highly critical to the overall DNA and existence of our students, our university itself. So we leave open that possibility, but as of today, I would say generally that is not the go-to approach.
We thank our audience for your patience as we stretch over to online, Zoom, and in person. This next one coming in advance. The Trump administration has submitted an executive order on the restriction of 250 words in all NIH-funded research. This includes words like community, diversity, and equality. Much of the current research by the university is surrounded by these very topics. Will the University of Hawaii be ending these programs that are fundamental in the progression in Hawaii's education?
There is a lot of talk about these words. Last Friday, we received from the National Science Foundation guidance that there are no words specifically that one could put in a proposal and the proposal not get funded. So maybe it started as a rumor at NIH, but there is no official guidance from them. I would think that, we should stand proud of what we do and explain what we do, and most importantly, it's not about words, it is about how meritorious the work we do it is. And if we are able to explain that, I think probably we're in a good shape.
Mahalo, VP Vasilis Sermos. And, there's such great questions coming into us. Just speaking to UH President Wendy Hensel, we're going to extend another 15 minutes, so we will go into about 4:15. Don't quote me, my math is not the greatest. Is that right? That's 20, okay, -5. Okay, we got that, thank you. The next question coming in from our online audience, thanks for bearing with us. Our department refuses to hold ICE trainings because of legal liability and lack of direct guidance from OGC. What is the university's plan for immigration training aside from having recommendations on the Federal Updates webpage?
Sorry, I'm not quite sure where that comes from, and I've heard it quite often enough. I can assure you that the attorneys at OGC have spent a lot of time and sleepless nights thinking about our students and how best to protect them. We have been instrumental, I think, with helping with the FAQs, and even before the FAQs were put up, we had them on our website, the OGC website, because we didn't want to draw unnecessary attention to the very people that we're trying to protect. To VP Sermos' point, maybe there are some words that, you can't necessarily count on additional attention. There are definitely words that in this sphere we can count on will draw attention. The other thing I wanted to add to President's point to maybe let her sleep a little better at night is DACA was part of the first Trump administration, if you recall. So I can tell you, after being here for 10 years, we're a lot better prepared with this administration, knowing what the initial moves were going to be made than we were all surprised by the last Trump administration. Thank you.
Mahalo to VP Carrie Okinaga. At this time, we actually would like to invite Hawaii Congresswoman Joe Tokuda, if you wanted to come up and share any words, any mana'o with our audience, if that's okay. Mahalo.
Aloha, everyone. And first of all, thank you, President Hensel, for holding this great event. I apologize, flying back and forth, I get a lot of allergies because I go between basically pollen and VOG most weeks, so it's definitely taking a toll this week for some reason. But really just wanted to be here to listen to the questions and the responses, and to assure all of you that you've got an ally in Congress fighting for these basic things, fighting for the rights of our students, our faculty, for our community to be able to gather, to question, to challenge, to think freely, all parts of a very open democracy, one would think. And you've got fighters in DC that are really trying to make sure you will be able to continue to do this. I want to just share one thing, because I did think this was an international student focus. I just came back from Japan a little while ago, and of all the things that broke my heart, it was actually talking to a group of international students. And when I asked the students, a few of them were from the States, many from across the country, a lot from Asia. When I asked them, do you feel safe coming home or coming to the United States to study? No one said yes. And these were students from New York, from Arizona, different parts of the country. And they said, between my political and academic freedom, where I'm now changing the words in my thesis papers, I feel safer here in Japan than actually going back to where I came from. And every student I spoke to from another country, at first were very hesitant to even reply, but they said right now they don't think it's safe for them to come to the United States. And that's a really sad statement, because especially here at the University of Hawaii, we know we have often been that safe place for so many people to come together, to learn from each other. And as I told all those students, those international students, that's our best chance for peace, right there, is the ability for us to learn from each other and with each other, to work with each other towards something better than what we have right now. So I guess that's just my humble way of please letting you know, hold the line, keep the fight. Know you have got advocates and friends out there. We will fight fiercely side by side you. We are in challenging times, but I pray if we are able to protect our educational institutions, I want to be sure my children and my grandchildren understand what really happened in this moment. So the reports you write, the papers you write and edit and publish, they're actually even more important than they ever have been, that you document this moment in our history and time, so that when my grandchildren and great-grandchildren come about, they aren't doomed to repeat the same failures and mistakes that I am seeing right now in Washington, D.C. So probably a little bit more political than you would like, but I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you folks do here in our foremost educational institution in Hawaii. So, mahalo.
Mahalo, Congresswoman Tokuda. And we proceed again with more of our questions coming in. And we will ask our in-person audience if there are any questions that you would like to share. I think, nope. Any questions from our in-person? Missing, oh, right here.
Do you give any estimate on the turnaround times for the additional approvals, including, as of last week, if I remember correctly, graduate student hiring? And could you also comment on if you'll consider, let's say, what I view as contract obligations given to new faculty, as aka the startup, how we are able to spend that as at our academic discretion, as was suggested. This includes some impact on students like grad student, also undergraduate hiring. And I've heard that students are already concerned that we will not be able to hire them.
Thanks for the question, but as the President said, first of all, our number one priority is our tenure and tenure-track faculty, especially the ones that go up for tenure and the ones that go for promotion. So if a young faculty member has a startup fund, and usually those are funded through RTRF, then I think common sense prevails. So I don't think that there should be such strict restrictions of how a young faculty member spends that money, especially on higher graduate students, to help them to do their research in the first couple of years before they get their extramural funding. So I wouldn't be concerned about that. And if anybody has any issues with that, I'm just an email away. I'm pretty sure Michael is one email away when it comes to Manoa. So please let us know. But we're there to support our young faculty members, all our faculty members, but especially our young assistant professors.
VP Sermos, thank you. We're going to go to a question coming in from our Zoom audience. With the significant cuts to higher education funding, particularly impacting research grants and university programs, how will these changes affect undergraduate students pursuing STEM degrees? Specifically, what impacts should we anticipate in terms of course availability and lab resources?
So I am going to go out on a limb, and I said as far as the undergraduate research experience and involvement of undergraduate students with our research grants is not going to be substantially affected. The concerns that I would have would be on graduate students, and then it would be for lab support, especially on the research labs, because a lot of that lab support comes from extramural funding. But a lot of that lab support also is heavily subsidized by colleges, and and the provost office using institutional funds. So some of that is going to remain. Now the more expensive labs to run, they may have to cut back depending on the type of research that it is performed. But as far as the undergraduate students are concerned, actually I don't think there is going to be a lot of impact there.
And we've come now to the last question, and this one emailed in advance. What is the rationale for all travel, regardless of funding resource, with exception of UH Foundation, having to be approved by provost? And what are some examples of travel requests that would not be approved at the provost level? For example, what are the red flags that might result in a travel request not being approved?
The rationality of limiting or requiring approval or review on travel is, I'm going to say it's preemptive strategically to ensure that campuses have adequate funds and resources available for what might develop. It's also to start looking at how to control, let's just say unbridled expenditures, if there is such a thing. The way the memo is directed, there's still a lot of authority at each of the campus level, so for each of the campus chancellors. And it's really about bringing a level of cognizance into decisions about what expenditures are occurring. Travel is one that, as the president had mentioned, there's a lot of justifiable need for the individuals, for the university, for your programs, for the departments that are legitimate that travel will be supported. But there are also travel instances where it is purely discretionary, and that type of travel in the interest of preserving campus assets and resources, those would be the ones that I would expect chancellors and the Manoa provost to scrutinize heavily.
Mahalo, VP Young. And President Hensel, maybe any closing mana'o you'd like to take the podium or share there?
Sure. Just again, how much I appreciate the fact that you're showing up and that we're having this conversation. It is more important than ever that we hang together as a community and work through challenges. Whatever your opinion on the politics, the facts are challenging for us. And so if we can talk to each other and work through this time, then we come out stronger, and we have to come out stronger. You know, I've said to many people, I do not intend to just play defense, and I don't think anyone in this room feels that way either. You know, our job is to continue to move forward and craft excellence across this university at every campus, and make decisions that, if they're going to be hard, at least are hard leading us to a better place. So thank you for working with us. Thank you for your continued conversations and support. And I want to say thank you to the folks who are sitting up here with me, who I can tell you are working incredibly long hours, tirelessly, and really tirelessly, because I'm getting emails from them at 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm awake too, because we can't sleep because we're so worried about these things. So I just want to make sure that in thanking you, I also thank and recognize the people who are working on all of our behalves. So thank you.
And before we wrap, just a quick note, more on FAQs or updates on federal policies are available online. You can log on to uhnews.org. On the front page, you just click on the Federal Policy Updates and Resources tab. You'll find that under the most popular section. And you can look out for a recording of today's forum on UH News later this week. We again extend our mahalo to President Hensel, VP Vasilis Sermos, VP Calbert Young, VP Jan Govea. We have VP Carrie Okinaga and UH Mānoa Assistant Provost Brent White joining us on stage. We kindly just ask you to please stay connected with us. We are all in this together, as we just heard President Hensel share with us. We thank you for being here. Stay safe. Continue to share aloha. Mahalo a hui ho.